Okay, so I think I've kind of just in certain videos, I've told you guys about I was a long-term sub. I worked every grade and worked in special ed as well for LAUSD for about 8 years. I had classes for months and months though, because I would do a lot of long-term subbing for teachers that quit or just when they couldn't find a teacher, or teachers that were ill. So I had students for long periods of time in my I guess career teaching for LAUSD, and I chose not to get my credential per the advice of my cousin who worked at one school and my 6th grade teacher who worked at another school. We worked alongside each other because of just, I mean, a lot of the corruption, a lot of the, they're brainwashing children to be cogs and machines. They're, once we kind of talked about, once I started seeing it, I was like, oh yeah, I don't want to be trapped in this fucking, what do you call it? Like a horror story called being a teacher and in the school system. So one of the things I also noticed as a teacher, I'm sorry, I shouldn't mention this. Then eventually I got my TEFL and TESOL certificate, moved to Taiwan, taught English for 2 years, moved back. I taught at a Chinese prep school for like 3 years. And then since then I do teaching here and there, tutoring, stuff like that. So I love teaching, but I just don't like the system. But one of the things that really like angers me that people don't want to talk about because they don't want to, they want to be all PC and they don't want to hurt people's feelings is the fact that the immigration, the illegal immigration is putting a strain on the education system, okay? And I speak Spanish. I'm conversational. I'm gonna say I'm not native, but I could get by. And as somebody that can get by speaking Spanish to kids and some of the parents, it's still really stressful when there's a language barrier and it's time consuming. And first of all, I don't think that, even though I chose it, I like learning languages as my choice. As an American citizen, I don't think that you should be allowed to, that you should have to speak Spanish in order to survive in your own country. And I wouldn't go to Mexico or China or any other country, knowing that I'm going to live there for a certain amount of years without attempting to learn the language or learning the language. And there's this whole other story too that we're told that's a lie, that it's too late to learn the language when you're an adult. That's bullshit, okay? From my experience, the only reason why it's harder to learn language when you're an adult is because adults have a lot of baggage, and then when you start learning a language, you have to go back to being a kid again because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to understand things, and a lot of people, it's basically their ego. So if you can get past your ego and not being afraid of making mistakes and falling down, then you can be fluent in a language no matter what age you are, as long as you put in the time. Okay, so that's another lie that we're told about language and age, and that your brain is wired. Yes, your brain does have certain wiring, but they don't also tell you that your brain can also be rewired. Like you can always rewire your brain. It's not set. But anyway, I'm going on a tangent. But yeah, it's a huge strain on the education system. And I was lifting this girl, and she's probably like early 20s, and she's just like, I was telling her, basically what I just said, and she was like, well, don't you think that the school system is messed up because the schools are closing and they're not people that don't want to be teachers? I was like, no, I think it's because what I said. Like, I'm sorry, but you're sitting in my car and I don't know, you're in school, like whatever, not in life yet, like not having to real life, but I've been in real life, and I know you're reading stuff in your book. I didn't tell her this. I was nice to her because I thought that she had a good heart, and I thought her heart was in the right place, but she just didn't know what she was talking about because she hasn't experienced it. All these people that read shit in books and they think that they know what life is, you know, but then they don't go out and experience life. It's different, okay? Like they don't get it. So I was just saying that it's a strain on the education system. It's not good for the children that are illegal that are coming in, and it's not good for the children that are already here, and it's not good for the teachers that are already here. It's a strain on the teachers, okay? And it's, you know, whenever you're throwing a different culture into a situation and they don't speak the language, and if you don't have a grasp on that, there's a lot of misinterpretation that goes on. There's a lot of culture clashes that go on. I know even when the Europeans came over here with the immigration, they stopped immigration for a while because the Irish and the Germans and the Italians and the Jews, they were all like fighting with each other. They have their own gangs and mob because of language and cultural differences. And I didn't really see that as much in the schools, where I saw that outside with the gang members and stuff, but even the Latin gangs, you know, the Mexicans, the El Salvadorians, and the Hondurans, and the, you know, I'm trying to think of other countries. They all have their different, even they speak the same language, they still have their cultural differences, and they revert to tribalism for safety. A lot of people do that for safety. And even when I lived in Taiwan, a lot of the expats, you know, myself, I knew expats that were living in Taiwan for 10 years and they didn't know a drop of Chinese, which is a shame on them. Shame and sin, just like people that come here to the United States and they've been living here like 1,000 years and they don't know a drop of English. But anyway, people gravitate and they do that because they want to be in their comfort zones. They don't want to get out of their comfort zones and learn the language of the country that they're living in, which I think is a really stupid and retarded idea. If you're going to be there for a long period of time, if you're visiting, you're not going to be there that long, I understand. But if you're planning to stay there indefinitely and you don't know wherever country you go to, wherever country you're from, wherever country you go to, you plan on living in a country indefinitely for a long time and you don't know the language, you're fucking retarded, okay? You're not making an attempt to learn language. A, it's just a great opportunity. And B, you're subject to, you know, you're very vulnerable too, because you don't, you know, people will take advantage of you. If you don't know the language, you know, if there's an emergency, how can you communicate something? You know, and it's just like, it's, I don't know, I don't understand. So, yeah, it's a huge strain on the education system. As a teacher, I've witnessed it, I've experienced it. And nobody wants to talk about it because they don't want to hurt people's fucking feelings. But how are we going to get to the root of these problems if nobody talks about it? We're not supposed to talk about it. We're not supposed to bring it up because, you know, open borders, no human is illegal. Fuck that shit. This, like, it's really annoying me, especially with the censorship, how we can't get to a lot of these problems because we're not even allowed to talk about them and say that they're a problem. Like, how can you fix things that are problems if you're not allowed to talk about them? So that's just my 2 cents on illegal immigration in schools. And, yeah. All right, guys. Peace, truth, and love. Bye. Mwah.